There's a distinction burning in my inner being, a truth so vital, it demands to be laid bare, exposed to the raw light of Yahuwah's plan. We're talking about two radically different groups of people, two distinct roads, and two entirely separate destinies unfolding in this grand prophetic age. On one side, you have foreigners who choose to join the covenant of Yahuwah. On the other, nations who, by divine decree, will ultimately bow in chains. Hear me clearly. This isn't about hate. It's about undeniable truth. Yahuwah drew the line, and I am here right now to trace that line with unyielding certainty. My core mission, my absolute purpose here is fivefold and fierce: to bring unadulterated truth directly from the scrolls, stripped of every denominational doctrine, church influence, or camp confusion. I aim to expose the insidious lies that blur the lines between righteous foreigners and the outright enemies of Yashar'al, to provoke thought and confront you with bold truths about inheritance, servanthood, and a profound prophetic reversal. Beyond that, I want to ignite true unity within the correct covenant context, demonstrating unequivocally that only those who truly cling to Yahuwah's covenant can dwell in genuine peace. And finally, to highlight that a true remnant of Yaakov is awakening, and they must discern between those who join and those who will serve. This is a message that demands your attention. Let's dive into row 1, foreigners who join the covenant. These are individuals who, despite not being from the direct lineage of Yashar'al, are powerfully drawn by the Ruach Kodash, set-apart breath, to the light of Yahuwah's covenant. They genuinely seek his face, his Torah, and his people. Their path is one of deep humility, submission, and unwavering loyalty to the Alua of Yashar'al. Consider what Yashayahu, Isaiah 56:6-7 tells us. Also the sons of the foreigner who join themselves to Yahuwah, to serve him and to love the name of Yahuwah, to be his servants. Everyone who keeps the Shabbat from profaning it and holds fast my covenant, even them I will bring to my set-apart mountain and make them joyful in my house of petition. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar. For my house shall be called a house of petition for all nations. That's a clear path of acceptance for those who cleave to his covenant. And yes, that includes keeping Shabbat. Then in Yahazqal, Ezekiel 47:22-23, you see an incredible prophetic promise. It shall be that you will divide it by lot as an inheritance for yourselves, and for the foreigners who sojourn among you, and who bear children among you. They shall be to you as native born among the children of Yashar'al. They shall have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Yashar'al. They actually get land among the tribes. And finally, Zechariah 8:23 paints a picture of 10 men from every language of the nations, grasping the hem of a Yehudi man, saying, "Let us go with you, for we have heard that the Almighty is with you." It's a humble, earnest desire to cling to Yahuwah's people and seek his favor. So, the key points for this group are unmistakable. These foreigners aren't grafted in by blood to become physical Yehudiim. Rather, they are grafted in by submission to the covenant. They don't rule over or replace the tribes. They serve alongside and dwell among them, sharing in the blessings of obedience. They are honored for their humility and covenant loyalty, with their acceptance predicated on their genuine turning and adherence to the Torah. Now let's look at the sharp contrast. We move to row 2, nations who bow in chains. In complete opposition to the righteous foreigners are the nations or segments of nations who have persistently opposed Yahuwah, and oppressed his people, Yashar'al. Their role in the end times is not one of inheritance or shared blessing, but of judgment and servitude. This isn't a suggestion, it's a prophetic decree. Take Yashayahu, Isaiah 14:1-2, for instance. The house of Yashar'al will possess them in the land of Yahuwah as male and female servants. They will take those who took them captive and rule over their oppressors. This passage clearly distinguishes between the clinging foreigners who join and those who are possessed as servants, former oppressors. Then Yashayahu, Isaiah 60:10-12 is even more emphatic. For the nation and kingdom which will not serve you shall perish, and those nations shall be utterly overthrown. This emphasizes forced servitude and utter destruction for those nations that refuse to serve Yashar'al. And in Tehillim, Psalms 149:6-9, it describes the righteous executing judgment, to execute vengeance on the nations and punishments on the peoples, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron. So the key points for this group are clear. These are the children of oppressors, nations and peoples whose historical and prophetic role has been to mock, enslave, and persecute Yahuwah's chosen, who refuse to join the covenant of Yahuwah and cling to his original covenant people. They do not inherit land or blessing. Instead, they are inherited by the house of Yashar'al. Their designated role is judgment, not reward, rendering reparations through forced servitude. The distinction is very sharp, isn't it? It's not at all what you typically hear in most religious settings. This leads to profound confusion. Where do these lies creep in? This vast confusion surrounding the end-time roles of nations stems directly from erroneous teachings prevalent in many modern religious systems. Camps, churches, and particularly certain Christian Zionist theologies have aggressively blurred the distinct lines Yahuwah himself drew in his word. Phrases like grafted in or everyone gets land are lifted out of their proper context and applied indiscriminately, creating a false universalism that undermines prophetic truth. Let's clarify grafting in from Romans 11. That concept applies specifically to Gentiles who turn from their pagan ways and are grafted into the olive tree, which represents the commonwealth of Yashar'al and its covenant with Yahuwah. This grafting in refers to partaking in the inner blessings and covenant promises, predicated on faith and obedience to Yahuwah's Torah. It does not mean that unrepentant oppressor nations or individuals from such nations who refuse to serve Yahuwah are automatically granted the same status as the remnant of Yashar'al or even the righteous covenant joining foreigners. It speaks of an inner reconnection, not a blanket amnesty for all past and future acts of rebellion. Religious systems often teach a false equivalence, suggesting that all nations will eventually be treated the same, or that there are no distinct roles or destinies based on their historical and prophetic relationship with Yahuwah and Yashar'al. This teaching frequently ignores or inwardly dismisses the numerous prophecies concerning the subjugation of specific nations, the restoration of Yashar'al to prominence, and the distinct roles of various peoples in the Messianic kingdom. It's a comfortable but ultimately deceptive narrative that avoids the challenging truths of Yahuwah's justice and divine order. To make it even clearer, consider the stark differences between the covenant companions versus the conquered servants and add truths. When it comes to joining Yahuwah, covenant foreigners say yes through their covenant submission. Conquered nations, however, say no, for they resist Yahuwah and his people. Next, consider keeping Shabbat. The covenant foreigners embrace it as a sign of their loyalty. The conquered nations do not. They continue in their own ways. When it comes to inheriting land, the covenant foreigners do indeed inherit, finding their place among the tribes of Yashar'al. The conquered nations do not inherit. Instead, they become a possession, not an inheritor. When it comes to becoming servants, the covenant foreigners willingly serve out of reverence and love. The conquered nations become servants by force as a consequence of judgment. Are they ruled over? The covenant foreigners are not. They are integrated as brothers and sisters in the covenant. The conquered nations are ruled over specifically by the house of Yashar'al. Finally, for their status in the end times, the covenant foreigners are accepted, blessed, and integrated. The conquered nations are subdued, judged, and serving as a consequence. It's crucial to see that this two-tier system of those who join and those who are subdued is not arbitrary. It's a consistent pattern throughout all of Scripture, demonstrating Yahuwah's unchanging character and justice. Let's look at some historical examples. Consider ancient Egypt. When Yahuwah delivered Yashar'al from Mitzrayim, the land of Egypt, a mixed multitude joined them. These were individuals from Mitzrayim and other nations who recognized Yahuwah's power and chose to align themselves with his people. But what happened to the Mitzrayim who oppressed Yashar'al and refused Yahuwah's commands? They were ultimately drowned in the sea. This clearly illustrates the distinction. Some foreigners joined the covenant path, while others faced judgment. Consider the historical account of Canaan during Yehoshua's conquest. The Gibeonites, through cunning and a covenant of peace, were made servants. Joshua, Yehoshua 9:27, specifically woodcutters and water carriers for the congregation and for the altar of Yahuwah. They submitted and were allowed to live, albeit in servitude. In contrast, the Amorites and other Canaanite nations who resisted Yahuwah's command and continued in their idolatry were utterly destroyed. Next, think about Babylon. When Yashar'al was in captivity there, some foreign kings, like the Persian king Darius, recognized Yahuwah's supremacy. Daniel 626 records Darius's decree acknowledging Yahuwah as the living Almighty. This is a king from an oppressing empire honoring Yahuwah. Yet Babylon itself, as an empire of oppression against Yahuwah's people, was judged and utterly destroyed. Finally, let's consider the time after the exile, specifically during the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. Upon return from exile, a strict separation was enforced. Foreigners, non-Hebrews, were explicitly excluded from the assembly of Yahuwah and from leadership roles. Nehemiah 13:1-3. While genuine converts were accepted, like Rechab and Ruth in David's lineage, the nations and their corrupting influences were kept separate. Only those under Hebrew headship and aligned with the Torah were instrumental in rebuilding. This period underscores the importance of covenant fidelity and discernment regarding who truly belongs. These historical examples solidify the consistent pattern, demonstrating this isn't just a future prophecy, but a principle that's always been at play. So, if it's not about race or geography, what truly is the ultimate divider? You've grasped the core. Ultimately, the deciding factor in these two destinies is not skin color, geography, or even historical lineage alone. It is covenant submission. Yahuwah's covenant is the ultimate divider, separating all people into two fundamental categories. Those who cling and obey. These are individuals, whether from the tribes of Yashar'al or from the nations, who sincerely humble themselves, embrace Yahuwah's Torah, and actively seek to walk in his ways. They are honored and integrated into his plan. Those who resist and oppress. These are nations or individuals who continue in defiance of Yahuwah, who oppress his people and who refuse to acknowledge his sovereign rule. They face judgment, and if not utterly destroyed, will serve in chains. Think of Samuel, 1 Samuel 2:30. Those who honor me I will honor, and those who despise me shall be lightly esteemed. That timeless principle governs who receives favor. And from the very beginning in Bereshith, Genesis 12:3, Yahuwah told Abraham, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. This establishes the universal principle that nations' destinies are tied to their treatment of Yahuwah's chosen people, Yashar'al, and their adherence to his covenant. It's all about how one responds to Yahuwah and his covenant. This deep truth, the clear distinction between covenant joining foreigners and nations destined for servitude, is not for everyone. It is a revelation reserved for the true remnant of Yaakov, Jacob, those whose eyes and hearts Yahuwah is opening in these final days. Many will continue to cling to false doctrines of universal peace without justice, or an inwardly dismissed gospel that conveniently ignores these physical realities. But the awakened remnant will see with clarity. Yashayahu, Isaiah 10:20-22 touches on this. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Yashar'al will never again depend on him who defeated them, but will depend on Yahuwah. The remnant will return. It highlights that only a select faithful remnant will fully return and comprehend these truths. And Yashayahu, Isaiah 66:22-24 gives a chilling yet clear picture of the ultimate division. For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, all flesh shall come to worship before me, and they shall go forth and look upon the corpses of the men who have transgressed against me. For their worm shall not die, nor shall their fire be quenched. They shall be an abhorrence to all flesh. This vividly illustrates that not all flesh will be blessed in the same manner. It underscores the ultimate division between the faithful who worship and the wicked who face judgment. So, yes, while the message is for all, the understanding and acceptance of it will be limited to a remnant. The final takeaway is a crucial and urgent one. The lines are drawn, the prophecies are clear. There are two roads leading to two distinct fates. There is no middle ground in the face of Yahuwah's returning reign. You either choose, join the covenant of Yahuwah, embracing his Torah, serving him in truth, and aligning yourself with his set-apart people, Yashar'al, and receive eternal favor, or face the consequence as a nation or individual that has resisted his will, oppressed his chosen, and refused his righteous decrees, facing an eternal reality of utter destruction and separation from Yahuwah's presence. The time for indecision, for inner complacency, or for clinging to comfortable fictions is truly over. The curtain is drawing back, and the choice is upon every heart. Will you walk the path of humble covenant submission, or will you find yourself among those nations destined to bow in chains? Choose wisely, for your eternal fate depends on it.